Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. What I'm trying to do today is compare two DSLR cameras that I've been using for quite a while now. We've had these two cameras for a bit, and apart from using them for photography, I've been using them for video as well. All the videos I film, in fact, are using these DSLR cameras. First, I've had the 6D for a while, and then the 7D Mark II came out eventually. They're both good for certain things, they're both bad for certain other things. They kind of fill each other's gaps, in other words, for video and photography both. But I was more curious about how they perform in detailed situations like ISO performance, noise levels at certain, lack of lighting scenarios. So what I did was I created a couple of settings. The first setting is just the regular indoor setting with no additional lighting. It's just, the fluorescent light in the ceiling. So for instance, you're shooting something in your house. Maybe you're not a professional and you don't have additional lighting. What kind of performance do both of these cameras push? So noise levels, again, sharpness and stuff like that. To keep everything the same, I'm using the most consistent settings I can. So the distance from the object I'm filming, which in this case is this creature, is the same. The lens is the same as well. It's a Canon 105mm L series lens. It's a great zoom lens. I'm going to be using the same lens for both of the cameras. Even the media card, which SD, is the same. I'm shooting at 30 frames per second. The shutter speed is set to 1/60th of a second, following the 180-degree shutter rule. And the temperature settings are set to a custom 3700K. That way both of the cameras have the same color, because I'm not color correcting anything. This is just raw material. Or unedited material, so to say. Everything is the same, like I said. I don't believe there's any differences other than the bodies. So let's see how they perform. So we start off at ISO 400. And again, the Canon 6D is on the bottom and the 7D Mark II is on top. You can probably notice that the 7D Mark II has a little bit more exposure in the fireplace, where the white tile is, versus the 6D. It's a little darker. You can't quite see the white tile yet. I mean, you're starting to begin to see it now. Here we are at now we are at 800 ISO, and you're starting to see more detail. Yet the 7D Mark II happens to have more detail in the back. Again, all the settings on the cameras are factory. Now at this point, I'm starting to notice something else. Along with the fact that the 7D Mark II has a little bit more noise than the 6D, the 6D has a sharper image. Both of them are focused on the nose of the animal / creature. And yet, the 7D Mark II has a softer focus, softer sharpness than the 6D. At this point, I'm starting to see a considerable amount of noise in the white tile in the fireplace on the 7D Mark II versus the 6D. Even more so now, we're at 2000 ISO, and I feel like the noise is becoming to flicker, and you can see the red color in the noise. Versus the 6D, it's still sort of soft. Still looking okay. Now, you can still see that sharpness difference on both cameras. Now, at 3200 ISO, this is kind of like my bottom line. I don't go above the ISO when I'm doing video, because really you just have too much noise to deal with. It's better just to have additional lighting or adequate lighting than using a higher ISO, because you can tell at 4000 now you're going to be seeing 5000, and it's just way too much noise. I mean, you can try to fix it, but the image is washed out. Your contrast is lost, and you're just going to deal with a lot of static noise there. Even the 6D is developing noise, but still there's a considerable difference between the two cameras. The 7D has kind of this washed out noise, while the 6D is still kind of soft. Of course, at this point, they're both pretty much losing information in the wide areas and stuff like that, but I'm surprised that even at this point, with such high ISO and sensitivity, you can still tell the difference between the two footages. The 7D still has a little bit more noise than the 6D. Now here what I chose to do is a kind of a panning shot. This is still a video, by the way, none of this is photos. Panning shot, this is the 7D Mark II. ISO is at 2000, automatic white balance. Now we have the 6D. Again, notice that the animal is a little bit sharper in the image, and there's a little bit less noise in the fireplace, like in the black area and the tile in the fireplace. To make it a little easier, I went ahead and made them side by side too here, or top of each other. You can see easier now the difference between the sharpness between the 7D Mark II and the 6D. And you can see the noise in the 7D Mark II. You can see If you look back at the chair or the fireplace, you can see the noise. Now, at this point I said, what about footage that has adequate lighting, meaning it's got professional lighting or whatever? So what I did was I set up some LED lighting in a different room, and I did the same test again, but I started with a lower ISO because I had more lighting. So we're starting at 200. Again, the 6D is on the bottom, 70 Mark II on the top. Custom color settings are a little different. They're at 3500K now, not 37, so they're at 3500K now. Both looking decent. I can't really complain about anything now. Although you're gonna start noticing something interesting here soon. I specifically chose this couch because this couch has this funny texture. It's got a bunch of lines, and if you're familiar with moire or aliasing, it's kind of this rainbow pattern that shows up on a lot of linear pattern objects. For instance, this couch. And the 6D sure has a lot of it. You can see that rainbowy kind of noise flickering effect. And to my surprise, the 70 doesn't have that. And I may be wrong, but it may be just a new updated sensor that filters that out. I'm not quite sure. Again, I'm noticing that the 6D is slightly sharper. If you pause the video, you'll be able to see the fact that indeed the 6D has a sharper image than the 70 Mark II, but it's harder to tell when the image is moving, when it's panning or something. Much easier to tell on a stationary object. You can still see that moire on the 6D. Starting to see a little bit of noise in the darker colors on a 70 Mark II. Still, the footage looks nice. 800 ISO is for these cameras, it's fine. You're not over amplifying the sensors or anything like that. At this point, you're starting to see a little bit more noise altogether all over the image. The 6D still remains slightly better with how much noise it has at this level of ISO. Of course, the colors are starting to look a little bit more washed out. You'd probably have to add a decent amount of low contrast, that low exposure. At this point, it's obviously a little bit overexposed with 2000 ISO, but I went ahead and did it anyway just to see what the noise levels would be. Both cameras are obviously creating noise, and if I'm not mistaken, there is a little bit less noise in the 6D than on the 70 Mark II. Now at 3200 ISO, of course, probably too bright for ideal footage, but remarkably, both cameras are fine. I wouldn't say this is terrible footage, but it is excessive noise levels. Things always look better with less noise. Everybody knows that. And at this point, you shouldn't be using 4000 ISO with this sort of setting, but this pretty much concludes the test. So hopefully this video reveals the performance of these cameras well enough that it helps you out. If you liked the video, feel free to rate it, subscribe for more content. It really helps the channel out. And until next time.